Hey, this is Editing Tim coming in here and would like to apologize for the delay on the release of this episode. Life got a little bit busy and hectic for both of us, me and Derek, so getting this episode and the following episode recording was a little bit crazy. With that in mind, please enjoy our 4-year anniversary. Uh, we kind of wanted to have a little bit of fun with this one, so yeah, we hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome back to the Alexander Society podcast. We're back at it again with our 4-year anniversary. Wow, it's really been 4 years. I really can't believe it. I'm Tim, one of your hosts, who's ready to don his tinfoil hat.
And I'm your other host, over-fluorinated and vaccine-injured Derek. And we got a we got a special episode for y'all today. For our four fucking years. I was still living at home after COVID when we started this.
I was living with my aunt and uncle when we started this.
Man,
I was just starting things with Virginia when they started this.
Ooh, bro.
God, I was a different person back then.
I still had to take like road trips just to see my at the time girlfriend. And shit, we're married now. That's crazy.
Proud of you, buddy.
Oh, thanks, bud.
You hold down relationships hell a lot better than I do.
So today we've got a very special episode. This is going to be off the fucking walls. This is just going to be
especially insane episode.
Just going to be a crazy all over the place episode. I don't know what to expect. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I didn't take notes because I didn't really know how to take notes on this one.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one who was struggling. Like, I didn't want to just spitball everything. So I kind of was like, I was going to have us go, like, do our intro, introduce our drinks like we do normally do. And then I was going to have you do a brief history on, like, the people of Tarter and, like, the map. And then I was going to go through the list of the claims on the conspiracies, then have you debunk them. That was kind of my vision.
Yeah, I'm going to level with you. I don't see it going that smoothly.
Yeah, I don't either. No. Well, as soon as I started doing this, like, I couldn't even get a coherent timeline on, like, going through and, like, okay, here's a claim. Okay, can I order these in a, like, sensical order? No, because every claim predicates on another claim. It's like an interconnected web where you can't, like, start... there is no start A to point B with this conspiracy. It's like, start at point A, but you also need to be at point B, but also be at point C, and you need to be going to all of them all at the same time.
They can't even, like, really clear up, like, what race the Tartars were. Like, were they white? Were they Aryan Ubermensch? Were they giants? Like,
were they really the Irish?
Were they Mongols who were also white? Like, it's all over the fucking place. Or were they wiped out hundreds of thousands of years ago in, like, natural disasters? Or were they destroyed in during World War II and then they covered it up and said it was Nazis? Like, where does it go? What do we do? What are we doing here? What's there's no time. Like, they don't have a timeline. Anyways, we'll get into it.
Did you watch any YouTube videos on this? Because did you come across Mind Unveiled?
I did not, no.
Oh my god, he's so insane. I watched 2 of his videos, which were the main videos that, like, Lore Lodge responded to. Oh my god, it's so fucking dumb. It's so fucking dumb. I could feel myself losing IQ points.
This shit is so good. This shit is so rad. It's
so dumb that it goes back around to being cool. Not smart, just cool.
Yeah, I feel like this is an appropriate level of just fucking brain dead stupid topic that we could discuss to be just really, really feel the times that we're in right now.
Oh my god, it feels so apt with the amount of stuff that's just happened this year so far.
Right now, because like in Italy in the 70s, they had, like, their own version of, like, a cold civil war. It was called the Years of Lead. Now we're in the Years of Lead Paint, and I feel like this is a stupid enough topic to be able, like, to match the tone. We're matching the tone.
So, Derek, what are you drinking tonight?
What am I drinking? Fuck you. I'm drinking. I'm drinking for my sipper. By the way, when I went to the liquor store, went over to George's, best liquor store in the city, bar none. Great, incredible place. One more reason to go there. I went in there, and then while I was checking out, the guy who was at the front counter checking me out had a shirt that said "fuck ice." Fuck yes. By the way, yeah, fuck ice. Abolish ice.
Fuck yes. Fuck ice.
Donald Trump should be in prison. We should probably just stick Stephen Miller on an island somewhere and just kind of let him do his own thing forever. Because, like, oh, Jesus Christ. So, I got American Solera Midnight Rodeo Black Lager. It's American Solera. It's a brewery in Tulsa, so it's an Oklahoma local. This is a 5.5%, and boy howdy, is it a dark beer. Boy, it's bitter. It's like,
I love how I feel like we went opposites on our drinks tonight. I went light and refreshing on my beer, then dark and bitter on my liquor, and you went kind of light and refreshing on your liquor, and then dark and bitter on your beer.
yeah, and I'm gonna level with you. I do like this stuff. I would probably go back to it. It just kind of tastes like watered down Guinness. It's good, but it just tastes like watered down Guinness. It's not special. I'm sad to say. I love them. I like American Solera. They make good stuff. This one was.
I wish they did more stuff that was in my wheelhouse because, like, I feel like they've done a lot of like the darker beers, which are obviously not my forte recently. And from what I understand, it's a lot of the people that were at Prairie prior to their buyout, and more power to them, especially now that I refuse to touch anything Prairie makes after that one beer I drank and didn't realize what it was.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, that was my beer. It's pretty good. For my shots, I got Spearpoint vodka, which is you and I are both familiar with Hochatown Distilling. I think we've tried one of their beers on here once.
Mm-hmm. I think we've both had a couple of beers from them because I'm pretty sure I've gotten a couple of them on the podcast.
Yeah, they're another Oklahoma local, Broken Bow. This is their vodka. It's a 40% distilled from 100% corn, which if I'd read that before, I might not have gotten. I'm so sick of corn, dude.
Corn.
Anyways, I am looking forward to trying that. It was a pretty cheap bottle too. Like you can see how big this bottle is. It's a 1 liter, and it was like $18.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, what?
I had noticed my lack of rum recently on the podcast, so I went with rum tonight. And I found Hamilton's Ministry of Rum Collection, Jamaican Pot Still Black Rum. And it is 46.5% alcohol. I just got good vibes from, like, the bottle. And, like, I just saw it on the shelf and it felt right, you know?
Yeah, it's a pretty old. Yeah, it's an old fashioned looking bottle, which I appreciate. It's a pretty bottle.
It's probably going to be darker than I prefer, but hey ho, I'll drink it. It's got like the old timey bottle vibes, but you can tell it's a modern, like, brought up. But like the label is stylized similarly to an old fashioned label too, so like I like it.
Yeah, but it's just like, yeah, Yeah, it's just like yeah, like the neck, the shape of the neck, and like the brown glass. It gives oldie like like I think about like some like genteel British plantation owner in Jamaica just sipping on like a boiled rum while he's overlooking his plantation, and just thinking, man, once those abolition laws go into effect, I am fucked.
um, for my sipper, I've got blackberry hard cider from Locust, which I think is an Oklahoma brewery. I don't know for certain. Let me try and find out. No, it is. Is that why? What is WA? Wyoming?
Washington.
Washington. Okay, it's from Washington. It's pretty good. I'm already 2 ciders deep.
Yeah, that should look pretty good.
I need it with this fucking topic.
A good 6%. Something you can drink fast.
Yeah, it is. I mentioned that earlier. It's at 6%. And so this week we're not really, with how insane this topic is, we can't really have a defined set of rules. So we kind of decided that we're gonna rate it on a scale of insanity. Each like a certain fact of like if we think something's insane, we'll give it a rating from 1 to what, Derek?
1 to 4. So we'll do 1, 2, 3. Any of those, we'll do that number of sips. So 1 is 1 sip, 2 is 2 sips, 3 is 3 sips. If it's 4, we'll do a shot. We'll do a little shotty shot.
And to start us off, let's go ahead and cheers.
Prost. So, anyways, how we want to start with just kind of a basic introduction. It's my little bit of historical background is not going to take super long.
Yeah, so we're gonna cover the Tatarian Empire conspiracy. Um, Derek's gonna give us a brief background on like where the people of Tartar, like not like anything deep or anything like that, and like why it shows up on maps and like what region was originally considered that. Obviously, it's pretty simple: Russia, Asia kind of area.
Yeah. Right, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I'll kind of go into like the origins of kind of conspiracy theories about Tartar. Not really conspiracy theories, but kind of like pseudo history about Tartaria because it comes up first in like the early 1900s and like Russian nationalism.
Oh, so this I thought this was a modern conspiracy. Wow. Okay.
Okay, here's the thing. The modern conspiracy very recent, completely fabricated in like the last decade. Almost no connection to historical pseudo history about Tartaria.
Wow.
Yeah, it's it. Here, let's get into it. So, what is Tartaria? The concept of Tartaria is kind of nebulous because it was never really a real. It was a real place, but it wasn't like a real like distinguished entity. It was more like it was a general name that kind of referred to it variously. It might refer to just Central Asia. Sometimes it would refer to Central Asia and Siberia. Sometimes northern and western China. It was a general idea for the area that the Europeans interpreted a people that they called the Tartars coming from the Tatars, where they came from, and the people that they thought were the Tatars were the Mongols. So this goes back to around the 14th century, like the 1300s.
I thought there were two. I thought there were. Sorry to derail you already. I thought there were in that general area, like the proto Russia, Asia area. There are like three groups of people. They're like the Mongols, another group, and then the Tartar people who were specifically not either.
The Tartars are. It's kind of weird because there might have been an actual. There might have been an actual tribe or ethnic group that was called the Tartars somewhere in like north of China. We're not really sure because Tartar is also just like it's the word itself comes from an Italian.
Doesn't it mean barbarian?
Yeah, it comes from a Chinese, like an old medieval Chinese word that generally was used the same way as the word barbarian. So it might have been referring to a specific tribe, and then later got used as a general term for any like Eurasian steppe people, like horse people by the Chinese, and then that word kind of got muddled up when it was taken by Italian explorers and then taken back to Europe, and then they started using that term to refer to horse people from that era. And the main horse people that they were familiar with during that period would have been the Mongols. So you go back that far, you hear the word Tartar, it meant the same thing as Mongols, and it didn't make a lot of sense because the Europeans didn't actually know a lot about Tartars or Mongols, whatever.
Typical European racism.
Yeah, and in that situation, I won't say it wasn't racism because there was a lot of, on the one hand, like, yeah, they're gonna see them as lesser people. On the other hand, we're talking about the Mongols here. They did a lot of fucked up shit. If, like, if the Mongols had wanted to conquer Europe in the 1300s, there's a good chance they might have been able to do it. They just never got around to it because of political reasons.
Fair enough.
And what they did do, like, they got as far as Poland, and what they did do that far was a lot of violence. So like, yeah, the term Tartar was originally like a term associated with Mongols that carried all of the fear of the Mongols that kind of went along with that kind of later evolved into kind of a sort of derisive term for kind of nomadic people from Eastern Europe, and then kind of ended up being adopted as like an actual ethnic term for, like, in Russia today there are ethnic groups that are referred to as like different regional Tartars. But the actual, like, an actual entity called Tartaria never existed. It's a general sort of vibe-based conglomeration of the areas that that medieval Europeans kind of believed that Asian horse people came from.
Sounds about right for Europeans of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, and granted, a lot of it was just because they were. You look at a map. You look at a map of Europe, Asia, and Africa. Europe is a very small little sliver of that whole landmass that's kind of off to the side. It was the only reason that Europe is as big and important as it is today is because of, like, imperialism and colonialism that came shortly after that period. If it weren't for that, Europe would have remained a tiny little
blip on a history,
a tiny little insignificant speck of dirt off to the side of like all of the important shit like China. But let's fast forward. 1800s, kind of going into the early 1900s. You get, in Europe, you got the rise of nationalism. After the French Revolution, you start to get this movement of like all of these nationalist movements that kind of start advocating for this kind of this idea of like all of these people that share a similar culture, share a similar language, should be all united together into one political entity and that country should serve like that ethnicity's interests. That was the basic concept, and it was often attached to like a lot of like liberal radicalism and constitutionalism that's kind of going around at the time. A lot of that stuff, especially after the Napoleonic Wars, made it to Russia. It was kind of carried back with a lot of Russian Imperial Russian officers in the Russian army that had gone and fought at places like that had fought in Germany and Waterloo and had occupied France. when they brought those ideas back, they started trying to, do revolutionary stuff, kind of in some cases trying to pressure the Tsar to adopt more liberal reforms. In other cases, outright trying to just depose the Tsar and free the serfs. We talked about the serfs in our episode on Georgy Zhukov. Serfdom in Russia was a fucking vile, violent institution that was essentially just chattel slavery. In every way that mattered, it was just chattel slavery. Anyways, those ideas of nationalism, they come over, and you get this thing. It's called the Decembrist Revolt. These guys called the Decembrists, who were army officers that had gone and occupied France, they tried to overthrow the Tsar, and they all got killed. But it spooked the Tsar enough that he wanted to kind of head off any attempt at doing any of this nationalist revolutionary stuff again. So what he did was he co-opted Russian nationalism and kind of brought it together into his own thing. There wasn't really necessarily a name for it besides Tsarism, something like that, but it was based on three tenets. It was orthodoxy, autocracy, nationality. Orthodoxy, of course, being the Orthodox faith, autocracy being the absolute power of the Romanov dynasty, and nationality meaning, this is the tricky one, it meant Russianness. It meant being Russian. It was the Russian Empire would be united by a common sense of Russian identity. Here's the hitch. Russia did not just include Russians. Russia also had Finns called, Russian Finns, or they're Karelians. They're, some of them might take offense to being called Russians, but they are in Russia. They were in Russia back then. But you had Finns, you had Tatars, you had different type of Caucasians. You had different Muslim groups. Out east, you had indigenous, Siberian peoples, the I forgot what they're called. The Komi, I think. No, those are Ural. But you had all of these different ethnicities. It was an empire. Every empire is necessarily multi-ethnic. What do you do with them? What do you do with these minority groups? So you had a bunch of different right-wing Russian nationalist movements that kind of advocated for different sort of positions on these groups. The most prominent of these groups included basically these peoples are inferior to Russians, but they have the opportunity to become Russian. And to do that, we have to destroy their native culture and Russify them. That was one perspective. That was probably... Yeah, that was probably the most common perspective. Another common perspective was, let's just get rid of them. Let's just send them all to Siberia to die, and then we'll replace their lands with...
So what... Basically the same kind of things we did to the Native Americans.
Right, yeah. That was a... It was a common thing happening in the 1800s, actually. There's a lot of similarities between Russian and American approaches to indigenous peoples that they conquered. And then you get later on, and you've the 1800s, we've kind of discussed generally a lot of this stuff before, but race science was starting to become a big thing, and other types of pseudoscience, pseudo-history, pseudo-geography were starting to become a big thing in order to justify a lot of racial theories that were going on in that period. And in Russia, of course, Russia does this with basically every idea that they import from the West. They put a real strong Russian coat of paint onto every idea that comes in.
I mean, does America do anything different when we import ideas? Just slap a red, white, and blue coat of paint on it? Russia and America are almost incidentally culturally closer to one another than I think most people realize. I think
I think if not for the language barrier, a Russian and an American would find more in common with one another than an American and a British person.
That's what I was kind of hint nudging about on there. Like while they're not a superpower anymore. Like we're kind of in our fall right now. Like I genuinely don't see America being a superpower for much longer, with the way the international scene believes us.
Yeah, we are in the American century of humiliation. Yeah, this was the 20 after the fall of the Berlin Wall, the fall of the Soviet Union. Everybody expected the 21st century is going to be America's century. America's going to rule the world, and we're going to start a 1,000-year Reich. And
boy, howdy, did we fluck that up.
Man, Matt, no country in human history has fumbled the ball as fucking hard as the United States has. America is the strongest empire on the planet, and we are fucking it up so bad.
This America is fumbling the ball harder than I fumble baddies.
We had in our hands the baddie that was geopolitical domination.
I can't believe we're actually making this comparison today. And it's accurate.
And now that China is picking up where the Virgin United States let it slip.
Nah. We weren't a virgin. We just we had game and then we slid into inceldom.
We had game and then our hairline receded.
Yes.
And we got to our midlife crisis and suddenly we're spending all of our free time at Hooters. We bought the fucking we bought the waitress at Hooters
started banging the secretary.
Bought the waiter at Hooters a minivan for her kid.
That we're not sure if they're actually our kid, but there's a good chance. But she also was a whore.
No, it's absolutely not our kid because we've never fucked her. She's just a single mom trying to make her way on the world, and we felt bad, so we bought her a minivan. Anyway, so I don't know what the fuck we're talking about now.
Wait, that analogy went off the rails so fucking hard, so fucking fast.
America is the middle-aged midlife crisis. The middle-aged man in the midlife, like in
middle-aged middle income dude who had a midlife crisis and somehow incel cucked himself into oblivion.
Yeah, so like in the 1800s, the Ottoman Empire was the sick man of Europe. That's what it was called. The United States is the divorced dad of the world.
Yeah.
Anyways, so you got a few different kinds of Russian nationalist approaches to what do you do with minorities in Russia. Then you get the Eurasianists coming in. The Eurasianists are fucking weird. They are weird dudes. And have you ever heard the term Eurasianism?
I feel like I have, but it's never been defined for me. I've just heard it come up.
Okay, have you ever heard of a guy named Alexander Dugin?
The last name Dugin sounds familiar, but probably not from this context.
I thought maybe the name might have come up while we were talking about something, and it just kind of came up with some random shit I was saying.
I feel like the last name Dugin is familiar, but you know how I am with names, so...
Alexander Dugin is currently the most prominent political and philosophical thinker in Russia today, the most influential. He is a staunch Russian nationalist, a sort of Russian revanchist, kind of. He has this idea of restoring Russia to its imperial borders, pre-Soviet Union, and he is a Eurasianist. And Eurasianism, also Alexander Dugin, really close with Vladimir Putin, very influential on public policy.
Does that surprise me in the least fucking bit?
Yeah, he is. Dugin is very influential on modern Russian politics, which is, I'll try to explain to my best of my ability, but
if they had any influence in Russia right now, I figured he's in tight with Putin.
Anyways, when Eurasianism first kind of popped up, the basic idea is Russia. Some Russian nationalists are trying too hard to be either European or Asian. They say we're either Westerners or we're Easterners, or one or the other. We're part of this sphere of cultural legacy, or we're this other sphere of cultural legacy.
No black and white for these people.
Yeah, and
It's all black and white. Sorry, no shades of gray is what I was trying to get across.
yeah. The Eurasianists are like, no, both of those are wrong. Russia is its own thing. Russia is its own cultural heritage and legacy that is distinct and separate from both European and Asian. And so, what is to be done with minority groups in Russia is that they should be each individual ethnic group should be recognized based on their like their ethnic virtues, basically, like how good are they as a people, and if they are like
That sounds like eugenics with extra steps in society.
kind of. But here's the thing: is like it's a very eugenics based sort of form of thought, but it was actually slightly more progressive than a lot of other Russian nationalists because their basic idea was like,
Well, there's your that's your fallacy. You started with progressive for Russian nationalism.
that's fair. That is absolutely, you are absolutely correct. That is, you are one
Hit that right in the bullseye.
right on the nose. Like the nail is driven in one hit. You are on the ball. We're grading on a curve here.
That's like an engineering curve. That's like it was out of 100 points and everyone scored less than fucking 50.
Yeah, yeah.
Except for that one jackass who's scored like a 90 and almost failed the curve for everyone.
The one jackass who got a fucking 89, and now the rest of us are fucking failing and have to retake it next semester.
Hot take. If you grade the curve based on the one student, you're a dick. But also, if you have to grade a curve that steep, you're also failing as a teacher to begin with.
That's fair, yeah. I was thinking of the same thing. Like, if that many people are either the information you're giving them is too high level for where they're at, or you just suck at teaching. Either way, you're failing as a teacher if that many people are failing.
Now, I will carve out an exception because I believe in education sometimes. If you are required to give out certain exams standardized by the entire university and you are working with your students as much as you can, but the tests are already preset for you, kind of, I don't blame you then. But, like, if you're individually making your tests and all of your students are fucking failing, that's a failing on you.
So, what made the Eurasianists different is they were like, let's take a look at each individual like minority ethnicity within the Russian Empire, and we'll judge them on their merits. If they're industrious and they're advanced and they can work to fulfill the goals and the needs of like Russian society, Russian economy, Russian culture, they can be considered Russian without having to change anything about their individual cultures because they have demonstrated that they are part of this sort of cultural bloc. And so they can still keep their own culture, their own practices and things like that while actively serving like a larger Russian goal. So they can be both Polish and Russian.
Like almost a more inclusive idea than the actual reality of the melting pot of America.
Right, yeah. The only problem is that if they don't live up to those standards, we should probably just deport them.
How is this different than America today?
That's the issue. Anyways, so that was their general idea.
I'm going to sip at that for reality of irony.
Yeah. So anyways, that was the basic idea of like Eurasianists are not as necessarily like ethnic nationalists. They have like a concept of like cultural blocks that exist all throughout the world. Like there's different like collections of cultures that all form like distinct blocks all throughout the world. Like you have like Western European culture, you have different African cultural blocks, you have East Asian cultural blocks, you have North and South American cultural blocks. But and they and so instead of thinking of superiority as like a superiority on an ethnic level, it's superiority on a cultural level. They believe that the Russian, like Eurasian cultural bloc is intrinsically superior to all others. And it's not an ethnic thing, it's just our culture is just more advanced, it's more coherent, it's more industrious and that kind of stuff.
It's like the argument that America is the best country because we're the freest country.
Yeah, yeah, kind of. It's like if it's kind of the Russian equivalent of that, except instead of freedom, it's based more on like Russian culture, like cultural ideas. Like we are more deferential to authority. We to the authority of the state. In that during that period, it was more deferential to the czar or to the Orthodox faith or to Russian culture, like cultural practices. Whereas in the America, it's like more in tune to like ideals of like the sort of aesthetic and ideological ideals of the American state, which is like individual rights, liberty, democracy, and then also like we also get like the authoritarian stuff kind of slipped in there, like deference to your boss, deference to your pastor, your wife stays. Anyways, I'm not going to get into that.
All that trad wife bullshit.
Yeah. So that's the basic idea of Eurasianism. But the problem with Eurasianism is that they are making this bullshit up completely whole cloth. They are making it up as they go along.
As it usually does happen. It's a very handed case in the story of we're always going to move the goalpost to exclude others.
And so you may notice I haven't talked in this little portion I'm talking about. We haven't talked a lot about Tartaria yet. We're coming full circle now. They had to come up with reasons why the Eurasian cultural bloc shares like a common legacy and therefore shares a common destiny. And so what they came up with was that the Russian people, the Slavic Russian people, and all of the peoples that fall within the realm of the Russian Empire share a common descendants, at least like a cultural descendants, from Mongols, which has a kind of grain of truth to it. There's a tiny little grain of truth to it.
Did they just take the everyone's related to Genghis Khan bullshit and run with it?
No, actually, because all of these different cultures were birthed and emerged out of the collapse of the Golden Khanate. The Golden Khanate being, okay, modern Russia. Prior to the 1400s, modern Russia did not exist. There was no concept of Russia. The reason that Russia came about was because that whole area for a long time was ruled by a successor state of the Mongol Empire called the Golden Khanate, which was after I think it was Kublai Khan. I think that was Genghis Khan's grandson. After he died, the Mongol Empire kind of just broke apart. And so all of these different areas of the Mongol Empire just kind of broke off and started doing their own thing. The one that controlled Russia and eastern parts of Eastern Europe was called the Golden Khanate. And the modern Russian people came out of a sort of unified struggle to break free from the authority of the overlordship of the Golden Khanate. So all of these different Slavic peoples that live throughout Eastern, what is now Russia, kind of banded together and were able to eventually successfully declare independence from the Mongol Khanate, and then eventually congealed under the authority of the Prince of Kiev, the Kievan Rus, into the modern Russian people. So, the Eurasian argument is that because the Russian people and all of these other people who their own ethnicities and their own national identities were also born out of struggles to come out from under the Mongol Khanates, they all share a sort of heritage of both being influenced by the Mongol Empire and breaking free from the Mongol Empire. They all share that common sort of heritage that kind of unites them into a single cultural block. Now we circle back around. The Mongols were also called the Tatars. And so when a lot of these concepts made it to the West, to Western Europe, to the United States, it often got translated as they share a common Tartarian legacy, a common Tartarian heritage, and a common Tartarian destiny. Through the lens of Western racism, this was interpreted as we are all descended from Tartars. And so that is where the concept of Tartaria came from. Like Tartaria as an actual empire. The idea was that there was a Tartarian empire that actually birthed all of these groups of people that are now the Russians and all of the minorities of the Russian Empire. So that's where the modern idea of Tartaria comes from, as like an actual state, like an actual empire, an actual entity. It was never real. The Mongols were real, but Tartaria as something separate from the Mongols was never real. That's where it came from.
Yeah, I'd kind of gotten this. Like, this is way more in depth than anything I had gotten. I had just gotten the tribe explanation, like I kind of briefly gone over with you on that, and like it was a general thing that they used on maps to denote that, but it wasn't actually legitimately considered a empire or a location at the time.
Right? Yeah. And
I kind of thought it was a European elitism kind of bullshit, like, oh, like that's where the barbarians live, bullshit kind of stuff like that.
it did kind of influence their perspective on what Tartary, as sometimes called, that did influence like what Westerners kind of viewed Tartary as.
So when speaking of the conspiracy and all that, Tartary seems to more refer to the more historical, like the actual historical, not the conspiratorial version of the empire. And Tartarian seems to be the more term associated with the more conspiracy leaning version of the empire.
Yes, yeah, that's what I picked up as well. So if you hear somebody talking about Tartary, they're talking about the general idea of like Central Asian and kind of the general kind of vibe of the idea of where
talking about Tartary, they're probably not wearing a tinfoil hat, but if you hear Tartaria, they probably got some screws loose and probably stroll a few message boards and QAnon places.
Yeah, if you talk to if they say Tartaria, you hear that come out of their mouth, you keep talking to them for a little bit, you're eventually going to hear some weird opinions about vaccines.
Almost certainly.
Yeah. So, anyways, then later on, you get to like the 1990s and 2000s. Then you get, well, I guess you can kind of get into that, but like that when they start looking for like where big fancy buildings come from, they look at old maps that say Tartary, and they say, oh, there was this big Tarter Empire that's been covered up that built all of these big magnificent buildings.
Okay, so when looking into this conspiracy, there is no cohesive timeline. Claims kind of like, so I am not going to be able to go through like, here are all the claims for this thing and that thing. I've tried to keep them together as much as I can, but if I'm bouncing around, I do apologize, and I'm just going to rapid fire some of the beliefs that they believe and I around this conspiracy. So the general idea of this is kind of like a a like almost a phantom time hypothesis conspiracy combined with like a like um
It's ancient alien. Yeah, it's phantom time hypothesis crossed with like kind of ancient aliens or Atlantis.
well, yeah, technically they believe that and a real, to them, real Atlantis. One of their most reasonable beliefs is Plato probably wasn't a real person.
Oh yeah, that's just kind of historical consensus at this point. Was that
I know, but that's their most.
Wait, no, I was thinking of Homer, my bad. No, Plato was a real guy.
Um, but I said their most reasonable assumption.
I was thinking of Homer, yeah.
I thought Aristotle was the real one, and then all the other ones were um, the hypotheticals. Or am I get the I get the whole thing mixed up with.
No, we actually have like kind of not they're I see them sometimes referred to as genealogy, but we have like genealogies, quote unquote, of philosophers who were like Greek philosophers and like who was teachers to different students of great philosophers. Um, we do know that Socrates was a real guy. We have historical accounts of him, and he has historical accounts of Aristotle, and Aristotle has firsthand accounts of Plato, because Plato was Aristotle's teacher and Aristotle was Socrates' teacher.
Okay, that is not the order remember them in. But I am not the.
Or I might be getting them mixed up. It might be Aristotle first.
I thought it was Socrates, Plato, then Aristotle, and I thought Aristotle was the only real one.
It might be, yeah. That might be the order. I might be getting them mixed up.
I am not the greatest at like remembering order and all that bullshit, so don't quote me on this. But from what I understood is there are three famous philosophers, but evidence kind of suggests that only the third one, the the last one in line was actually a real person. Is the only one we have real evidence of. Is what I remember.
Okay, I remember the order now. Yeah, I remember the order because Aristotle was Alexander the Great's teacher. So it was Plato, or no, it was Socrates, who was the teacher of Plato, who was the teacher of Aristotle. And we have accounts of Aristotle talking about being taught by Plato. And we have accounts of Plato. We have accounts of Aristotle talking about Plato, telling him about being taught by Socrates. So we know that they were real guys, unless there's just some sort of like cosmic coincidence that it happened to perfectly line up that Socrates and Plato were like names that philosophy teachers took at the time. But there's no, as far as I'm aware, there's no evidence for that. But
I could be misremembering my philosophy 101 class. And, like, that's a genuinely safe assumption, to be certain. But it just kind of sounded like, from what I was explained, that Socrates and Plato were used as not allegories, maybe as, like, I guess allegory is the best word I can use right now. Were made up people to give Aristotle more credence in the histories.
that sounds like an idea that somebody would have. Now, granted, I haven't looked super deep into it. If there is evidence of that, not something I'd be familiar with.
We're getting a little bit of into the weeds on this anyway.
But the reason I mentioned Homer was because that sounds like something that I've heard about Homer, and it's kind of generally like the historical consensus is that Homer was not an actual single guy, but like a bunch of different people who took the same pen name.
That I would believe for certain.
Yeah, which that would be easier to believe because Homeric poems, Homeric myths are like nearly 1,000 years older than Plato and Aristotle. So like, yeah. Anyways, go on.
So, one of their beliefs is that several of our historical buildings around the world, and there's no consensus on like what buildings constitute it, but ones that have had like reoccurring nominations are like the World's Fair, White House, a lot of different places where abandoned architecture from the Tartarian Empire, which isn't all that on the insanity scale. It's not that high, and the reason why this infrastructure was abandoned was there were mud floods, which, come to find out, there are real life mud volcanoes, which I didn't know was a thing, but those are genuinely a real thing in real life.
So here's my thing though. Mud volcanoes where? Mud floods where? Because Tartary, like the historical Tartary, is in a specific geographic location that does not include the White House or the Taj Mahal or the Notre Dame Cathedral or the Shanghai Bank.
Yes, those are all places that are considered potential Tartarian architecture. So, what part of the theory is, this is where our Atlantis aspect comes into it, is supposedly there was a great flood, like a traditional flood, somewhere down the line of it. What is basically, it follows the Atlantis myth to a T, but not like calling it there's no real name given to wherever the Tartars came from, like supposedly, but apparently,
Yeah, they might as well be Hyperboreans.
yeah, basically. But there was a flood on an extremely advanced civilization, and they moved over into what is now Ireland initially.
Ireland? Really? Really, Ireland?
Yes. Yes. And then eventually,
Okay, let's take a sip. Let's do a sip for that one. Ireland, of all places.
oh, you're about, let me crack open another beer because you're about to hear an insane words. Would you ever expect that I would say the words, the Irish are the real Phoenicians?
That's why.
So what I mean by that is like the Phoenicians have a very large place in history. Like I don't remember all the historical context, but like a lot of what building blocks of history of like language were built off the Phoenicians, from what I understand. And rather than it actually being the group that we typically associate with the Phoenicians, it was actually the Irish.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just now imagining Hannibal Barca with a fucking Dublin accent. Just just the Phoenician army crossing over the Alps singing fucking "Come Out Ye Black and Tans," and
God damn it, that's at least 3 sips, if not shot territory. Fucking hell. Come out, you black and tans, and fight me like a man.
oh, that's
Fuck.
he's just skip, skipping down the causeway towards skipping his army skipping down the causeway towards Cannae, singing "Kinky Boots" is the funniest shit in my fucking brain that has ever entered my mind.
I think that crossed our territory from 3 sips to a shot. I don't know about you.
Okay. Prost.
Cheers. Um, some of the reasons for the belief that this architecture was not of modern construction but leftover remnants from the Tartarian Empire was they don't feel like it was in line with other contemporary architecture at the time, which is just flat out bullshit.
Yeah, so this is where we're okay. This is where we're getting into where I kind of I don't want to give these people credit, but I do sympathize with them slightly because I do agree with them on one thing, and that is that modern architecture really doesn't hold a candle to traditional architecture.
No. We're not talking about modern. We're talking about the arc. It didn't feel in line with the architecture that was being built at the time when the buildings were claimed to be built.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I'll bring this back up when we move on later, but yeah. So for this, like, I can understand where they're coming from because the architecture that was going up in the 18 like especially the late 1800s during the industrial revolution was because it was such a fast advance in technology and like economic development. They could build these different types of buildings that just towered over everything else around them. It was a huge leap in sort of architectural, like technological development. And so as a result, you start getting these buildings that are going up and they look absolutely alien when you compare them to the surrounding architecture which was in a lot of cases still kind of medieval. So I can understand where it's coming from, but there are like historical reasons that are documented reasons why that happened.
Tell Caitlin I say hi because I saw lights go on.
Caitlin, Tim said hi. She said hi.
So they claim that we've had multiple mud floods throughout history, because of course.
Right.
Also, there's never a given reason why the Empire survived plenty of mud floods prior, but and there's no end date on when the Empire supposedly have had vanished because okay, they left infrastructure in the US, but some claim that they were still around all the way till the First World War and all that bullshit.
Yeah, the main one that I saw come up a lot was that one of their big things is that World War II was actually like the final like push to destroy the Tartarian Empire, and that the excuse that they were like fighting the Nazis after was invented afterwards in order to justify the war, when in reality they were destroying like this ancient advanced morally superior civilization.
So the closest I came across on that, and the reason why me and Derek's accounts can differ sometimes, because there's no cohesive storyline in this bullshit conspiracy. It's like trying to argue with a flat earther. They each have their own idea of how flat earth works, and it's not even close to the next person's.
Yeah, it's for some reason it's especially bad for this one because the conspiracy theories are always kind of like tack on whatever you want onto it because it doesn't matter. You can't verify any of this. None of this stuff is like has anything to back it up. So you could tack whatever you want into it. And so most conspiracy theories are pretty like just kind of up in the air. You can do whatever you want with them. There's no coherence to them. This one is especially bad because there's not even like a time. Nobody has even made an attempt to create like a coherent timeline of this shit. They just kind of look at the fact that there are buildings that seem like they are more advanced than modern, like more
other buildings of the time.
Yeah, there are buildings that we see that are very large and resplendent and feel like they were made for the purpose of being glorious and having splendor, and then you compare that to modern.
Oh, another theory is the reason why there was such a gap in the architecture is because the Tartarians were the giants.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's another great one. I fucking I've
But that's not the most insane thing, so I say that's only like a sip or two.
yeah, I'd say that's like giants. I'll give that 2 sips.
So you'll see a lot of buildings that are like one or more of the floors is like below ground when very clearly when the building was built, um, it wasn't. And there's plenty of explanations for this. City resurfacing projects, because we used to not just rip shit out. We just like built on top of it, and that's what happened. But they claim the reason for this is that's what happened, and the mud floods are what buried it,
Yeah, and that's like
which is tame for the conspiracy, to be probably honest.
yeah. That's the thing is that this is a very tame, low stakes conspiracy theory. But like as far as like that is a curiosity of a lot of old architecture is that you'll go into the basement and you'll see the basement has windows and that's a thing that I saw a lot kind of come up in these conspiracy theories is like why would they build windows in the basement? It's because it was buried by a
Well, maybe because electricity was a luxury and you needed natural light.
well no it's like windows it's like very clear like window panes or not window panes but like window openings like just like normal like ground floor level windows but then like the other side is just dirt or concrete because it's underground. And there's a lot of reasons why that could happen. I mean, one like you said, resurfacing, like redoing. A lot of times they'll like elevate road levels, like they did that a lot in like Chicago very early on. A lot of buildings in Chicago are like that.
Well, especially here in Oklahoma, settling and sinking are a big thing here in Oklahoma.
Yeah, yeah, that can happen with like soft soil, and then like you go over to like in Israel and Palestine. There's a lot of old buildings where like the what was once the ground floor is now underground because a lot of those buildings are thousands of years old, and the cities just kind of that just kind of happens with cities is when it exists for thousands of years. The city sometimes just gets destroyed because of like war, natural disaster, and then they just build on top of it. And some of those structures just kind of survived, but then like they had to make the ground level to keep it level with like all of the new buildings that were going on top of the rubble of the old buildings. So like the ground like there's an entire word in Hebrew for exactly that phenomenon. It's tel. And like you see that in names in Israel. There's like Tel Aviv. It's called Tel Aviv because it's a city that was built on top of a tell, which is a tell is just a mound of cities that have been destroyed and built on top of for thousands of years. That happens.
Yeah. When we're excavating shit, like old abandoned cities, like you know those mounds you'll see where like it's clear it was just like a old architecture just under a hill or whatever. They claim that's also proof of mud floods.
Oh, I bet they have a field day with Rome. Rome is you Rome is so chock full of underground ruins that they can't even fucking build a subway in the city of Rome because every time they try to dig out a subway, they keep finding new archaeological digs that are legally protected, and they have to stop digging.
You want to hear another thing that's the most insane thing you'll hear today?
What's that?
They claim the Greeks and the Romans weren't real.
Yes.
Let me clarify. They don't mean the individuals that we think of as Greeks and Romans. The terms are Greeks and Romans and like the current beliefs we have around the people of the Greeks and Romans are not real.
Sorry, real quick. Have I told you why I left TikTok?
Because insane shit like this pops up.
Okay, so
Mister, I haven't gone on my 10K plus following in years because you got fed up with TikTok.
10K, excuse me, 21,000 followers.
Mister, you still need to start logging into that shit and advertising the podcast again.
Okay. The reason that I left TikTok behind, even though it was for some reason my most successful venture into social media, was because, well, there
Honestly, I think if you hadn't left TikTok behind, you could have launched a YouTube channel the size of Lore Lodge and all that by now.
maybe, but the final straw that finally pushed me to leave TikTok was when one of my mutuals fucking fell off the wagon and hit her fucking head on the way down.
I forgot she was a fucking mutual. I didn't know this till years later, chat. I didn't know this till years later.
She was one of my mutuals. We talked. We talked in DMs. She commented on my private videos. We were mutuals. We were online friends, and then she fucking lost her mind.
Maybe she fell down the Tartarian rabbit hole.
And I'm so mad about it. Because I started following her because she posted some really interesting videos on Jewish history. She was Jewish. She had some really interesting videos on Jewish history and Jewish religious practices and things like that. It was great.
Also, they believe the Jews weren't real either.
Jesus. But this eventually she started getting into weird shit. Like at one point she was like, actually, cave drawings, cave drawings that you find from like ancient humans, the reason that they look so simplistic is because they were meant to be viewed in black light. And when you look at these cave drawings in black light, they become three-dimensional.
Does she have an double-digit IQ, Derek?
So I thought that was weird. And then I started getting sketched out when she became the main character of History TikTok for the first time, when she started claiming actually Alexander the Great was a woman. And the reason the what she claimed was the reason.
I forgot about that shit. God, you're digging up years of TikTok trauma. Fuck. I didn't realize that was the same bitch.
The reason the excuse that she gave for that was that the city of Alexandria. Yeah, same bitch. She said that the what she cited as her evidence was that the city of Alexandria, which he founded, ended in Alexandria, being a feminine suffix, even though that Alexandria isn't its name in Greek. Is a feminine suffix in English, not in Greek.
It's like those Bible philosophers who look at the Bible and interpret it only through the English interpretations, not looking at the actual historical meanings or like context versus the translations. It's like, no, this is in English, so this is what it means.
Yeah, the fucking pastors who are. Yeah, the fucking pastors who are baffled when you start talking about like biblical theology and they wonder why you're bringing up Greek. It's because all the fucking gospels were written in Greek. That's what they were written in. They were translated from Greek to English. That's why we talk about Greek in biblical studies, you dumb motherfucker. The gospels were, the Bible was not written in English. It was translated into English. Anyways, The reason I bring this up is because what finally convinced me to get, and y'all have probably heard about this. If you were ever on History TikTok since COVID, you've probably heard of this woman. She claimed, she fucking claimed that the Roman Empire was not real and that it was a fabrication by the Catholic Church in order to justify their authority. And that all of the Roman ruins that we see all throughout Europe were actually Greek.
If it were physically possible, I'd be seeing my brain right now.
I had been having a lot of issues with TikTok. I didn't like the format of TikTok. I didn't like how the algorithm worked. The final straw was when I realized one of my mutuals is a fucking maniac. And then when she became she became the main character not just of History TikTok, not just of TikTok, but it spilled over into other social medias. I was seeing people talk about it on fucking Twitter. I was seeing it come up in my YouTube recommendations.
Hey, check out this dumb bimbo.
I was seeing debunking videos on YouTube about this woman. And this woman who I thought who was at one point I considered a friend of mine.
So this woman who basically launched Lore Lodge's career kicked you off TikTok and prevented you from becoming a big major history TikToker / YouTuber.
Kind of, yeah, I guess. But I couldn't. That was like, okay, I don't even want to be on the same fucking platform as this woman anymore. And so I put my account on private and I logged out and I went back just to check things out every once in a while. Sometimes I'll open TikTok back up and I'll have like 30 notifications from like people reacting to comments that I've left and shit. But yeah, no, that was the final straw. That's why I left TikTok.
Are you ready for this next insane? Because I'm going to repeat it.
Yeah, go for it.
Here comes the racism. The Tartarian Empire conspiracy theorists believe that the Jews stole and warped the knowledge of the Tartarian Empire.
Mm-hmm. Yep. This is this intersects nicely with another a thing that's common with a lot of neo-Nazi conspiracy theorists is that it, especially in relation to like their belief that World War II was covering up Tartaria. It was like the last destruction of Tartaria. It intersects nicely with this belief, like this neo-Nazi conspiracy belief that Jews orchestrated World War II in order to destroy the basically like puppet mastered the Soviet Union and the United States and Britain to gang up on Nazi Germany in order to destroy the last gasp of Aryan like white resistance against Jewish domination. That's the basic concept, and so it kind of intersects with Tartarian conspiracy theories nicely in that kind of regard. But yeah, it's fucking. I'd say that's worth 3 because it's fucking insane. We need.
Okay, 3 sips. Well, you didn't rate the Greeks and Romans weren't real either, though.
Oh shit! Yeah, that one's 3 too. Let's do 6.
Okay.
No, I gotta be honest with myself. The only reason I'm saying that is
I took 3.
Okay, we'll do 3 for the Jewish conspiracy theory because it is fucking insane and we need to recognize it's fucking insane, but I've heard it before. It's not very original. For the Greek and Roman thing, I do think that that's worth a shot because I need to be honest with myself.
I was kind of surprised you didn't declare at least one of them were a shot.
Yeah, because I got to be honest with myself. The reason I didn't declare it a shot immediately is because I really don't want to shoot this vodka. I'm not a big fan of this vodka.
I mean, I don't really want to shoot this rum. Not because it's bad rum. It's actually decent rum. It's I wouldn't say it's mid, but it's not good. So it's like half a step or a step above mid. And it's one of those kind of liquors that like, unless it's absolutely cold, it's just not good. So like like if it's warm, it's like kind of like not good.
Let's go ahead and do a shot because I think the Greeks and Romans are not real is worth a shot. Bros.
Cheers.
Anyways, what were you talking about?
Wait, I just finished the Greeks and Romans weren't real. The Jewish people warped Tartarian knowledge. Getting back onto the reason why the building / infrastructure were Tartarian and not contemporary to the time. They feel like the faster timelines were unrealistic. Like, okay, they built faster. Like, safety standards weren't a thing back then, dumbass.
That okay, yeah. So that's something that I can recognize as being weird because the period that we're kind of talking about, the 18 like the especially the late 1800s, which is where a lot of these buildings that they talk about come from, they were built at the scale that they were building them were built shockingly fast. Like Notre Dame Cathedral, for example, which is like comparable in size. It's a little smaller than say like a Capitol building, but like a domed Capitol building. But Notre Dame Cathedral was built. It took like multiple generations. It took like 150 years to build Notre Dame Cathedral. And then you compare that to like, just here, like the Oklahoma State Capitol. That took like a couple years to build at most. They added the dome on later, but even the dome took like 6 months.
Well, I want to blame like so I want to say it's okay. You're at the peak point of industrial revolution, at the point where safety standards aren't really like yes, they're a thing to a certain point, but they're not nearly as slow. Bureaucracy isn't to the point where like it slows shit down. Now, a lot of what takes construction today so long isn't the actual construction itself. It is the calculations, the safety measures, and all the extra steps in between the actual physical construction of stuff. Because like we can get construction and like other stuff done fast. It's the extra stuff outside of the physical act that takes time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think it goes back to like the Industrial Revolution was genuinely unprecedented in human history. We go from like thousands and thousands of years, 10,000 years of settled human history since the dawn of the first city states, when we started recording history, the dawn of the written language. And then we all of a sudden we hit the 1800s and we're able to do things at a scale and a speed that has never been seen before in human history. That is fucking weird. That is crazy. The problem is we have historical documentation. We have historical evidence to figure out why that happened and how it happened. We can
Well, there's like what's funny is sorry to derail you on this. There's funny like people will take long exposure photographs and say, "Hey, there's no people here. It must have already been here." Ignoring that long exposure photographs don't capture people because they don't stay still fucking long enough.
Right, yeah. Yeah, the long exposure photographs, they're sitting there for like what, 15 minutes? Like they're not going to be picking up people who are moving across.
This is the kind of exposure photographs that take days to months to develop.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're not going to.
And that's why they claim that these are older architecture. That's one of the claims is because their people are moving too fast to show up in long exposure photographs. Oh, these aren't actually being built. This is just like it has always been there, or even if it's in progress, oh, this is just the renovation of it. There's no way this photograph could have been taken at the time because there's no people, there's no nothing. It's just like staged.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that's something that came up a lot when I was reading on it is that that's one of their main pieces of evidence is that like you have all of these pictures of like all of these old pieces of architecture from back in the day, and the area around them is just completely empty. It's devoid of people. And through leaps and bounds of mental gymnastics, they come to the conclusion that the reason for that is because these are abandoned, because they're ancient, and not because these are cameras that take fucking hours to take an image, to actually like take in the photons and develop it into an actual image that you can see. And so it's not going to take in the image of all the people and the stuff that's moving through it. And that it's just more like this is
It's so much brain rot of today's modern technology not comprehending that older technology would be fucking slower.
this is the whole fucking conspiracy theorist thing is that like they see something that they can't explain, which is a normal, regular, average part of the human experience. And what a normal reasonable person, a healthy person would do is like, "Oh, I can't explain why this is off. Let me go and look it up and see if people are talking about it." And then they go and look it up and they're like, "Oh, here's a reasonable explanation for why that happened. That's very interesting." A conspiracy theorist will go, "This is weird. This feels off. Somebody must have done this to me. Somebody must have inflicted this weirdness upon me, and I have to."
And now I'm going to check the vibes, and now I'm going to just see what's fucking wonky about it that I can guesstimate.
Yeah, I'm going to formulate a reason in my head why this is off to me instead of just going and seeing what the actual reason is, which people have probably already figured out. And if they haven't figured it out, well, no reasonable person would be like, "Oh, people haven't figured it out. That must be something that somebody's working on, and I'll be really interested to find out what the reason is when they figure it out." And then a conspiracy theorist goes, "Oh, they haven't figured it out. That must be because they're hiding it. They're hiding the truth. And here's the truth," and they make it up on the spot. They don't want you to know this thing I made up.
They don't want you to know.
And that's the thing is that I have to keep in mind that conspiracy theories appeal to people that are conspiracy theories appeal to people that are lonely and isolated and need an explanation in their life that's easy and simple, and they can feel like they can control, that they have a handle on. Because if the world is being if the world is being if all of their issues are due to like a cabal of people that are like manipulating the minutia of everyday life, they can they have like a target. They have like a group of people that they know are in the wrong and have measurable motivations that they can understand. Because if you look at the reality that like the systems that dominate our life, that cause all of our problems, that make life unbearable for the vast majority of human beings, are just kind of systems that exist outside of any human motivation and are kind of just kept to the just kind of kept up by inertia and just end up destroying our lives in the process. That is fucking awful. Speaking from experience, that is an awful realization to come to. That feels horrible. And a conspiracy theorist is a person who sees that and is like, I can't handle that emotionally and mentally. I'm going to come up with a reason, or I'm going to listen to people who tell me what a reason is, why I can, an explanation that I can actually grasp onto so I can feel like I have a sense of hope. I have to keep that in mind that this is the kind of person that comes up with ideas like this because I need to humanize them because if I can't keep in mind that these are human people with human emotions, they are just fucking brainless morons. They're drooling automatons that will believe anything that you tell them at face value. And I don't, personally, I don't know how to handle the existence of people like that. So I have to keep in mind that these are just human beings.
I mean, I'm getting pretty much to the end of the claims of the Tartarian Empire, and we've kind of, as we've gone, kind of like debunked a lot of this shit.
I feel like I've gone on a lot of rants this episode. What else should I rant about?
This episode was rant the podcast. Um, I mentioned earlier how it wasn't in line with contemporary other architecture of the time, but they also say it wasn't possible with like just building technology at the time, which clearly was bullshit.
Yeah, no, like we very obviously had the technology to move. I mean, they had the technology to move. Like, again, I'm talking about people who think that the pyramids were built by fucking, like 10-foot tall Ubermensch, but like 10,000 years ago, they had the technology to carry stones to stack on top of one another to build the pyramids. Like the technology to build and to craft artwork and facades for the architecture that you see pop up during the Industrial Revolution is not as big a leap as you'd really think it is. Like I know I've talked a lot about like the technological advances that made this kind of architecture possible and the huge leaps that were taken during the Industrial Revolution, but really like the technological leaps are not as huge as they would really seem on face value. Like I said, they built Notre Dame in the 1100s. It took them several generations, but they did build it. So what we were really doing in the 1890s was like the same thing but faster because we had, instead of having to pull every rock by hand, we had steam engines that could pull them. We had cranes. Like we just came up with new, like we identified inefficiencies in construction processes and we found quicker ways to do it with new technologies that were being developed. And yeah, it was a huge leap in technology, but wasn't an unreasonable leap in technology. Yeah, it was a completely like
Reasonable leap. Jinx, sir.
yeah, it was a completely understandable, comprehensible leap. An incredible leap. Absolutely an incredible leap, but it's something you can comprehend.
I call Jinx, sir. Take a sip.
All right, fine. Fuck. Okay, yeah. Did you have anything else that these?
I have two more other claims from the conspiracy theorists.
Okay, let's get into it.
The claim is they had truly free energy.
Oh, this is a classic one. Yeah, this is.
The claim is that they were able to harness the power of sound to the point where they were able to create 0 point energy, and that's the reason for the larger infrastructure and the resonance you see in a lot of architecture of the time. essentially they were able to create their infrastructure in a way that they were harnessing sound in the same kind of way that we currently harness electricity.
That is, I've heard of free energy conspiracy theories before, but this is a very unique take on it. So I'll give them 3 sips.
Yeah, the claim is they were able to master sound to the point where they were able to mess with the atomic molecules of matter and create 0 point energy, supposedly. And this is one you've kind of hinted at from your talks about it. A lot of natural disasters, disastrous impacts on history, were really intentional in order to cover up the Tartarian Empire, such as the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, the San Francisco earthquake of 1906, World War I, and the Spanish flu.
The Spanish flu is one I didn't come across. Can you explain that one a little bit?
It gives no explanation how it's a cover up. It just says that's a list of the.
There's no Okay, I should have seen that coming. There's no explanation for it. It's just the nebulous. The Spanish flu was a cover up of Tartarian architecture.
Well, so what I understand is they used each disaster or mass killing of lives as an excuse to say, hey, this is why certain things were demolished and blah, 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 blah. So I assume they take the mass casualties as an excuse, like, oh, we threw a bunch of people in this not necessarily this building, but like, hey, this thing was destroyed due to lack of upkeep during this time because of this flu or this, that. That's kind of the take I assumed from it. Like, hey, everyone was sick, so no one was able to upkeep this building. It kind of fell apart and destroyed itself.
But I don't, because there are buildings that like, I don't know, because there are.
I'm not saying it makes good sense. That's what I kind of assumed from it.
Yeah, I'm. Here's me trying to apply logic to a fucking conspiracy theory, but
Well, that was your first mistake, sir.
trying to think like a, trying to think like a conspiracy theorist for a second. I don't think any of them would put in that much thought to it. I think it would be a nebulous like. The Spanish flu was used to cover up the truth of or like Tartarian architecture and like just kind of leave it like in the air like that, because that's kind of how conspiracy theory works. You throw a claim into the air and it kind of just you'd kind of just leave it hanging there so that the audience can interpret it however they want. And that's why conspiracy theories like this get so many different facets that sometimes seem to contradict each other, is because everybody is kind of coming up with their own ideas to interpret this false information that they're getting. And that's kind of, I think that's kind of what I would take that as, is like there's no thought put into it. It's just like, yeah, the Spanish flu happened, so it must be like, it must have, a catastrophic loss of life from a deadly pandemic couldn't have actually happened. It must have been the deep state trying to inflict a mass casualty event in order to cover up a something, and then fill in the blank after that. Leave the audience to fill in the blank after that. Spanish flu specifically.
Yeah, it's like a lot of like conspiracy shit is just like nebulous. Oh, it had to be this, and they don't really give a good, thought-provoking explanation on why.
Yeah, and you know that there's some like COVID denier types that are just fucking that heard like, oh yeah, the Spanish.
It's that same kind of brain rot.
Yeah, they'll hear like, yeah, Spanish flu was a cover up for this and that, and just they'll take that ball and they'll run with it all the way to the end zone. It's I am so fucking sick and tired of conspiracy theories were so much fun when they were niche. And now that there's like a mainstream party who's not only utilizing them, but
I feel like uh, conspiracy theories have gotten tiring over the last few years, and this is probably a while before we cover another conspiracy theory. To be perfectly honest.
yeah, they're exhausting. It's like it takes a very mentally ill kind of person to derive any enjoyment from conspiracy theories because they're fucking exhausting. If you have even an ounce of like basic human consciousness, the ability to perceive and rationalize information in your brain, it's fucking exhausting trying to make sense of conspiracy theories.
Any parting words before we get off here, Derek?
There was something that I wanted to talk about that you didn't end up bringing up. You kind of mentioned it, but I did want to like talk about it a little bit more. And that was, yeah, go for it. Anyways, I was gonna give my last little bit on like something I wanted to bring up with Tartaria. Okay, one of the really interesting things that I came across when I was reading about this stuff was during the one of the big things that a lot of Tartarian conspiracy theorists come back to is the architecture of the World's Fairs, and I think we have talked about this on the podcast before, the World's Fairs and the temporary, yeah,
Can I interject real quick? The the reason why that construction was set up so quick, and they claim, oh, it couldn't have been set up that quick without having been old Tatarian infrastructure, is because they knew it wouldn't fucking last, so they cut fucking corners, but they also made it out of shit that they knew wouldn't last.
yeah, yeah. So we've talked about like the temporary architecture. Like we've talked about like the World's Fairs in the past, like the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. One of the big features of these World's Fairs was demonstrations of new architectural designs. So what they would do for that is that they would build temporary structures to show off these architectural designs. And they would, in order to make them cheaply, they would make them out of temporary materials. Essentially, the materials that these buildings were made out of were basically just like slightly more durable paper mache. They were like clay.
It sounded like it. It sounded like this shit was like, I'm surprised it lasted long enough to finish the construction.
Yeah, like imagine like the sets that imagine standing in line at a ride at Disney World or Universal Studios. Imagine that kind of material. That's the kind of material that they were building these buildings out of, except they were giant, massive buildings that were out in the environment. They were out in the weather.
That needs more structural support than that.
Yeah, these buildings were not built to stick around. They were built to show off new construction designs, new architectural features that were being developed. They were designed to show off like what you could do with architecture in the Industrial Revolution. The Tartarian conspiracy theorists have taken this and were like, oh, these were not temporary structures at all. These were actual real constructions by the Tartarian Empire that were used for a cheap cash grab. This is what they say, is that they were capital cities of different districts of the Tartarian Empire across the globe that were used to make a quick buck off of in these World's Fairs to, sell some popcorn and some hot dogs and maybe a pitcher of beer. And then once they were done, they once all the people left from the fair, they tore these buildings down so that they didn't think that they would like, be replicated, like new ones would be built. And I don't really know what I want to say about that. That's so self-evidently bullshit. Like I don't even know how to debunk that. Like no, we have
I mean, this whole thing has clearly been like, hey, I can't really think deeply, and I can't even do like 2 seconds of research to like fact check myself, so I'm just gonna make up bullshit and make big ass claims.
yeah, no, you can they have records of like municipal zoning permits for the temp for that are specifically discussed, like these are temporary structures that we're building and then we're going to tear them down once we're done with them because they were never meant to last, because they were made out of materials that if they got 10 rainfalls they would start to melt.
Yeah, like this clearly was not meant to last past. Like it shouldn't have lasted to the actual event, let alone past it.
Yeah, yeah, this wasn't meant to, like, they weren't made out of fucking marble and stone. Like they didn't build these fucking things out of, like, you can see pictures of them when they were built. Like if you zoom out and you look at them from far away, like, yeah, they're fucking incredible pieces of architecture. You get up close to them, you look at pictures of them up close, they look like shit.
They look like shoddy day by night construction crews that closed down the next after they finished so they wouldn't get sued.
They look like a cheap theme park.
Fucking exactly.
They were really, really impressive architectural methods using intentionally subpar materials because they weren't intended to last. And you can see documentation of that. You can see pictures. You can see municipal zoning permits. You can see this shit. You can read it. You can look it up yourself if you had the basest amount of human curiosity existing in your brains. One of the great strengths of human intellect is our natural curiosity, our desire to observe the unknown and find out what makes the universe tick. That basic impulse to know more.
I feel like we've kind of lost that in the last few years because, like, me like no thought, me NPC.
Yeah, because people are fucking, like, I understand. People are tired. People are exhausted. I'm fucking exhausted. But that's...
I understandably so. We're getting flashbanged by so much heinous shit just in the Epstein files alone, and that's not even one of the biggest things we're dealing with in modern society.
Yeah, we were talking about this before we started recording. There is a fucking foreign head of state that was kidnapped by American special forces sitting in a jail cell right now on American soil.
That I had fucking forgot about.
And we aren't even talking about it anymore because it's like number 7 on the list of big shit that's happening right now.
I've went ahead and removed this part of the recording because me and Derek are both fairly drunk and we got so far off topic that there was no blending back and forth to cut it out. So I just kind of had to do a hard stop. You could not go back in time and tell, what was it, 2014 or 2016, somewhere in that range, Tim, hey, Pizzagate is real, but not because that exact conspiracy is real, because the real pedophiles planted a theory that it was at this pizza parlor when it was really just Jeffrey Epstein on a fucking island. Tim would be fucking just like, you would break my goddamn mind that it was a seeded conspiracy by the actual pedophiles.
Yeah. Yeah, and it turns out they weren't kidnapping children to harvest adrenochrome in order to, lengthen their...
They were still eating fucking children, though.
They were stealing children in order to just, rape them because the kinds of people who
No, they still ate children too. I didn't look into this, so I'm gonna back off. But like, supposedly, that eating children thing was real too, is what I've seen.
I'm going to say that that's fake until I actually read it for myself. But I haven't gone through 3.5.
Bro, I'm 5 beers deep. I haven't. I refuse to look at the Epstein files because it'll end up with me with my gun in my mouth. That's what will happen. At the end of the day, if I actually dig into the Epstein files, I'm gonna fucking blow my brains out.
Yeah. So let's look at. So the conspiracy theory was that there is a satanic cabal of pedophiles who are stealing and kidnapping children for the purpose of sexually abusing them before murdering them, torturing and murdering them in order to harvest their adrenal glands to synthesize a drug that will extend their lifetimes, extend their life expectancy. In reality, what was happening was a rich guy was acting as a node for international finance and business. And the connections that he was using to facilitate this was providing young girls to be raped in order to make a profit off of it because capitalism's
It was not just young girls, though.
not just young girls. That is absolutely true. There were young boys as well. There were grown women that were abused as well.
Well, so specifically, I mentioned the part about the tent pole in Trump's ass. Apparently, it was a non-binary person that was a born male at birth, now uses non-binary pronouns, who was forced into that situation.
Yeah, so LGBT people, of course, we should have seen this coming, were also exploited and abused by this system. And this was all made possible by the fact that capitalism self we now have solid concrete evidence that capitalism as a system for creating a ruling class self-selects for pedophiles.
Unfortunately, statistically correct.
This is a consistent enough trend. The Epstein files have made it clear that this is a consistent enough trend that we can safely say that capitalism self-selects to make pedophiles rich.
I kind of wish I could just get my hands, like, obviously I wouldn't have the mental fortitude to, like, read through the files, let alone carry this out, but, like, hey, I get hands on the unredacted files. That's my hit list. I'm just going to go through and take care of it. Obviously, I do not have the mental fortitude to do so, but, like, it's very clear that our society is built upon the backs of people who very much should not be alive, let alone in positions of power.
I think the true topic of this episode was not Tartaria, but real life, the conspiracies that are actually true are so much more horrifying than the shit that conspiracy theorists come up with.
Basically.
Anyways, that's my piece. Tim, do you have anything else to add?
Other than fuck this administration, no.
Fuck this administration. Fuck the system that made it. Fuck conspiracy theorists for facilitating it. I'm done having sympathy for you people. I live through the same shit that you do, and I'm still a reasonable human being, so I don't know what the fuck y'all's problem is.
Where can they find you, Derek?
They can find me on Blue Sky. The O is a 0. At Visigoth, the O is a 0. Of course, I need to put my tag in there. Tim, where can they find all your shit?
They can find me at Tim A.K. Otis on Blue Sky, and they can find the podcast at the Alexander Society Pod on Facebook and Instagram, Alexander Society Pod at Blue Sky, and then Alexander Society on TikTok. I promise we'll try and do something. I have totally forgotten about that account on TikTok, but we'll try. And if they've liked it, listen to, please give us a rate and review on their streaming platform of choice, and we will see them next time.
God, I'm too fucking mad to do the bye. See y'all next episode. Fuck you.
Bye.